So welcome everybody to the final segment of the four-part webinar series, What's Next? Pivoting from High School into Future. And we commend you, all of you, for making it through the four-part webinar series. And our final topic is financing your future. And we believe this is very important because each of us must ask ourselves, what does my future look like? And that can be a tough question to figure out. But it takes us back to one of our first polling questions at the first webinar, which is, what is your dream job or your career? So in financing your future, we will be exploring post-secondary education, and that's any kind of education or training after high school that helps you prepare for a future job or your career. So in this segment, we will be sharing ideas and websites that you can explore to help you identify potential jobs or careers that might interest you. And we will also be exploring how to go about finding the money to pay for post-secondary education for things like scholarships, grants, work-study opportunities, student loans, public service, or apprenticeship. For each of you, as a young adult and a high school graduate, just now, time is on your side. And as a wizened older adult, what I would suggest is to use your time wisely. Yes, it's important to explore and to explore broadly, but at the same time, do your best to train and prepare for that job and career that you're interested in. And remember the video that we shared with you at the beginning with the very first webinar, The Story of Your Life, which was about positioning yourself for success. And you do that by the decisions and choices that you make. So let's get going. Our speaker today is Mr. Devontae Montgomery. He did the earlier segment on banking, so he is familiar to us. He is a financial educator from MSU Federal Credit Union and a graduate from Oakland University with a degree in finance. So without further ado, Devontae, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. So hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here and to present to you Financing Your Future. So as we go through this, I just want you to just think about what my future really looks like. What are those future plans that you do have? Again, my name is Devontae Montgomery. I am a recent alum of Oakland University with my bachelor's in finance. And my high school was Cass Tech High School, so I'm originally from Detroit. And let's go ahead and get started. All right, so like I said, as we go through this, I want you to think, what are those future plans for, post high school? So now that, you're probably outside of that senior year, or if you're still in high school, what are going to be my future plans? Do I want to pursue a certain path of education? Do I want to go right into the workforce? Do I want to do an apprenticeship? All of those different things. Really think about that. And then have you written them down? So have you become very intentional about your goals? If you write them down and kind of keep them close to you, whether you put them up in your room or whatever, that visual aid will help you to really focus on those goals. So write them down, make them plain about what you want to do. I know when I was in high school, I was all about accounting. So I wanted to go into accounting and become a forensic accountant and work for the FBI. And that was definitely what my plan was. Now, as I got into college, things did start to change. My goals kind of changed. So now I am a financial educator. Probably by the end of college, this is what my goal was to be gather a position or gain a position where I could really help people. And then, do you have a plan of action? So how will you go about this plan, this career path? How will you attain that? Do you have a plan where you know that, this is what my 5-year goals are, this is what my 10-year goals are, this is what my 0 to 3-year goals are? So really think about that. And then, why are you excited? So I just said that I wanted a job where I could really help people. So that's what gets me excited about coming to work every day. Is I get the opportunity to talk to people about financial literacy and to increase knowledge amongst people. That's what, gives me that passion. All righty, and then the paths to explore. So as I go through this slide and we, highlight different paths, I want you to think, what could be the cost, the potential cost of this path? So community college. We'll talk further about community college, but start to think, and even if you want to, you can pause the video. Just think about, how much do I think community college costs on average? That amount would be about $3,300 a year. This is, of course, on average. So depending on the community college that you go to, it could be more and it could be less. But this is what that average amount is. And a lot of the times, community college is looked upon because it is a little more much more cost advantageous than, let's say, a four-year institution or university. And that average cost is going to be, we'll say, almost $15,000 per year. This is, of course, in-state. So this is saying, like, if you're in Michigan, this is going to a college or university that is in Michigan, because there is going to be a difference in price when we're thinking about out-of-state versus in-state. And with out-of-state, that average cost is about $25,620 per year. This is out-of-state. The reason why that cost difference is there is because a lot of the times, someone, like, especially if it's a public university, they receive funding from the taxpayers in those states. So if someone decides to go outside of the state to go to college, then they're going to have to pay more because that person or that person's parents or guardian hasn't contributed to that tax base. So that's kind of why that variance is present with in-state versus out-of-state. Something to keep in mind, though, with this four-year institution price, this doesn't include room and board. So when you're thinking about room and board, it is living on campus and also having a meal plan where you're going to be able to eat every day and all of that. That runs anywhere on average from about $8,000 to $10,000 per year. So also insert that or calculate that when you're thinking about college. And then as far as trade and certificate programs, these are going to vary greatly based upon the different program that you may be looking at going into. With trade and certificate programs, it's also going to look at what type of materials are going to be used in order for me to learn this trade. If I am a welder, or if I am a person that's into the HVAC, so that's that heating and cooling system that runs through buildings. If that's what you're interested in, it may be a little more because those materials that someone would use would be more expensive. Then when we think about entrepreneurship, because that is a path as well, just because you may not think of it as an educational path, you want to learn on that path as well. And the cost of this is going to depend, it's going to vary greatly, and it's also going to depend on what it is that you're going into. What is that business looking like? What's the inventory costs? What are the startup costs to the business? Where will you get that funding from? All of those different things will impact that price. And then apprenticeships, we're going to talk about that. Having the potential to be paid for work and to go to school and to get a certificate. So we'll talk about that as we move further into the presentation.
Yes, Demonte, if we could just mention again, back on that entrepreneurship, that sometimes depending upon the particular type, a licensure might be required. So there'll be preparation, to get licensed in a particular area like HVAC, for example.
Exactly. So there are definitely different license that may be required. And that also will affect cost of starting that business as well. So with community college, typically these are, when you're attaining a degree from a community college, it's going to be called an associate's degree. So it's approximately a 2-year degree program. When we're talking about the year as far as terms, This is thinking of it as going to school full time, so that 12 credits or more per semester. There are also certificate programs that are offered with the community college. And then there's the low cost. As we look at all of those different paths of education, we saw that if we're looking maybe on a per year basis, that definitely community college was on the lower end, especially when you compare it to a 4-year institution or university. You can also take prerequisite courses at your community college. So what prerequisite courses are, is they're kind of those general education courses that everybody is going to have to take at a university. And then this also can help to gauge your interest. So where do my interests really lie? If I don't know, then maybe I'm going to start to take some classes that may pique my interest at the community college level, so that I can really find out what it is that I want to do.
Devontae?
Yes.
I just wanted to touch base on those prerequisite courses. Like you said, they're general ed courses and everybody takes those, but they, and you may have talked about this, but just wanted to really emphasize that whether a person attends a 2-year college or a 4-year college, you can do the beginning part of your 4-year degree at a community college, as Devontae was alluding to, and take those general ed courses. So you can take almost a year, year and a half of college courses at a very reasonable cost at the community college, and then transfer to a 4-year college or university. And that way you get a 4-year degree ultimately at a reduced cost without having to pay those big dollars at a 4-year university the entire 4 years. So just wanted to go a little more detail with that strategy.
Okay. Thank you for that, Suzanne. And then with a 4-year institution or university, they offer usually 3 different levels of degrees: bachelor's, master's, and doctorate or PhD. So the bachelor's can also be interchangeably used as undergraduate. Then master's is considered a graduate degree. And then doctors is pretty much just talked about as doctors. But we are going to really focus in on that bachelor's degree, because that's that first degree that someone is going to get when they're going into school. Universities, they offer that wide array of majors. So there are different majors that I may have to choose from than maybe even with the community college, though they offer a lot of majors, they may not offer as in-depth of majors when it comes to the university level. And then you get the opportunity, if you live on campus, to really get that holistic college experience. So I lived on campus my first 2 years at Oakland University, and I would say I lived in what's called like a campus bubble, because some of the issues that may have been present at home, they didn't really affect me, because I knew, or, I get the opportunity to hang out with my friends day to day, or I know I got to go to classes. I know I have homework. I'm going to the library at this time. That's what my real thought was when it came to when I was living on campus. I was really hyper-focused on school and, gaining my network and things like that. So that was definitely a really cool experience. And then I did have the opportunity to live off campus. It felt, that there was a bit of a shift as far as how I felt about college. It was, a little further away. Like I would come to campus, I'm there to do what I need to do and then go back home. But I still did get that college experience. So it was still good. And then we talked about the prerequisites being taken at that community college level. And then with a bachelor's degree, a lot of the times that degree can be used in multiple career paths. Because sometimes the requirement is really just to have that degree. Because in that, while you're going to school, it's not necessarily just about going to class, but it's supposed to help develop your social skills, your interpersonal skills, learning how to work with the team, things like that. So the idea is that if someone possibly has that bachelor's degree, and they've been able to hone in on some other skills that are supposed to be picked up throughout that college experience. Then when we think about trade school, so trade school is going to really be looking at those different particular certificate programs. We've talked about a few as far as like welder, HVAC, barber college can also be seen, hospitality school, those can be seen as trade certificates. And they're very specific in their nature. So whatever it is that someone is looking to pursue, they could be looking to pursue a medical builder. That program is going to be specific to whatever that particular certificate program that you're trying to pursue. It's going to be very specific to that. Like with let's say a medical builder, you're going to learn pretty much mostly about that thing, rather than with a community college or university level, there's going to be a little more of that general learning. So we talked about those general education courses and things like that. Also, trade school is usually more cost effective and can even be seen as more time effective, because usually those programs are from 6 months to about 2 years, depending on the program that someone will be going into. Also that high earning potential and the fact that they're gaining more popularity. So with individuals really starting to realize that there are other alternate ways to me pursuing a degree or something like that I can look at. So the trade school is definitely becoming more popular and has that high earning potential, but it may not be recognized everywhere. If you're going to move to a different state, they may have different requirements than, let's say, Michigan, if you got your certificate program here. So make sure when you're thinking about that, you're doing that investigation to find out, well, if I move here, what are those different requirements and how may they differ from my state? And then we're thinking about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, this takes a lot of dedication. It's not a set and forget type of ordeal. With entrepreneurship, you have to develop your own business plan, find your own funding, participate in different, they may have different community events for small business owners that want to gain more funding and things like that. That's kind of all on that person who owns that business. It also requires legal establishment. Are you going to be an LLC, a corporation? Whatever those different establishments are, you have to do research there. Financials, keeping track of what you may be spending. If you're a person that has inventory, making sure you keep track of that. Those are all important things when it comes to entrepreneurship, as well as understanding the missed time with network. So with your network, you may have, you may miss time with your network because you're very dedicated to building that business. If that is the case, you have to understand that you may not be able to go to all the functions with your friends or your family because you have to focus on that business. Yes, Suzanne?
I just wanted to mention to the students, you were talking about financials there earlier, and you did go into that a bit, and just wanted to let the students know that a lot of, what you've been learning about in the earlier webinars, things like budgeting and banking, and just figuring out how to handle your income and then how you're going to spend it with the budgeting, and then the banking is a safe place to manage your money and your cash flow, as well as borrowing money when that comes into the picture. Those are all going to be important skills and knowledge that you're going to want to really have a good handle on as you're going into entrepreneurship. So continue to, just a heads up, to continue your financial education going forward, especially if you're interested in entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. One of the things that a lot of financial institutions will look at if you're going in for a loan for your business is, how are you handling that personal business? How are you handling that personal income to determine how you may handle that business income. But with being entrepreneurship, especially once you get into the business gets running well, or you have a system, you really get the opportunity to make up your own schedule. So maybe you want to do other things that will help to elevate you in life. So you want to kind of make up your own schedule. This may be a path that you may consider, but there may be a requirement of a degree or trade. So depending on the business, a lot of the times those certifications that exist or that may be needed or bring validity to what it is that you're doing. You have to think about that as well. And you are your own brand in business. You know, my name is Devontae, but if I had a business called D's Car Wash, well, I'm also D's Car Wash because that's my business, that's my brand. So I have to represent it well. And then the possibilities are endless. With the age of social media and all the things that are going on, the possibilities of what you may be able to attain are, you know, endless. Really think about that. And then with apprenticeships, so it's a program that trains workers to become skilled in a particular trade. So an employer will sponsor this program where the student will get the opportunity to work at the company as well as go to school through a trade program. After they've went through the program, they'll have that trade. My brother, I have a brother that actually attended an apprentice school in Virginia, and he became an electrician, an electrical engineer through the program. So he worked for the Navy on their shipyard and then also went through trade school. So generally, like we said, sponsored by those employers. And then when you're thinking about getting an apprenticeship, you can consider your desired position in industry and also search for programs. And Suzanne will talk a little more about those apprenticeships once we get towards the latter part of the presentation. And then, you know, if we're thinking about, I don't exactly know what I want to do, or I want to know what a day in the life of this particular job that I'm looking at or career path that I'm looking at, you can visit drkit.org. This website has tons and tons of videos about different careers where, you know, if you go in there or you go to drkit.org and you go into the video, it'll tell you they are all answering these three questions. What are the qualifications required for this job? What are the best and worst parts of this job? And what financial advice do you have for someone interested in this job? I'm sorry, what final advice, not financial, do you have for someone interested in this job? This is free to use, so definitely go and check it out when you're thinking about that career exploration. All right, and now we're going to get into how will I pay? How will I be able to pay for the different things that I may want? So as far as your schooling goes, how will I pay for this future? How will I finance it? Well, we have grants, we have scholarships. When it comes to grants and scholarships, that's that money that you don't have to pay back. Although with the grant, you know, typically it's offered on a need base. So having that financial need. And then scholarships, they can be need-based or academic-based or have an essay requirement to them. With donations, you know, when you think about donations, and whether it could come from the parents or guardians or just your family, also your community, things like that. I always recommend once you graduate from high school, definitely have an open house because an open house can help to set you up for success as you get ready to go into that career path. Or into that education path. And then wages earned. When we're thinking about wages earned, this is going to be about work that you may do. So getting a job and earning wages through that can help you to pay for school. And we'll talk also a little bit more in the next slide about financial aid. And then with loans, of course, we want to use this as a last resort when it comes to financing our future. Gaining or getting loans, because we have to pay them back. And also it's what's called interest that is going to be tacked onto these different loans as well. Yes, Suzanne? You're on mute.
Devontae, will we be touching upon work-study opportunities later? Okay, I'll be quiet. Thank you.
No problem. All righty, so when it comes to scholarships, we want to figure out how can we maximize our scholarships. The first rule of thumb in that is not ruling out those scholarships that aren't the huge amounts. Like, oh, this scholarship isn't $5,000, I'm not going to apply for it. Well, those scholarships really add up. And ideally, a lot of people have that thought. But if you're applying for those lower amount scholarships, that also could possibly put you in a pool that is smaller than the larger scholarships. And when we're thinking about where am I going to find these? One, you can do an online search for scholarships. I'm a person that believes that we all have something that kind of sets us apart, whatever that superpower may be, as I call it. For instance, I am left-handed. So when I was going to school, I searched for scholarships that actually had a left-handed scholarships or whatever. So I had to write an essay on how life was being left-handed and the different things that you kind of have to adjust to and things like that. And I got a scholarship for that, and that helped pay for books for my first year. And that was really cool to me because it's something that it makes me different, but there can be scholarships and things like that offered. So think about that. Think about what your superpower is, and do an online search for scholarships involving it. Also visit the financial aid office. If you decide to go off to college, don't be afraid to go in there and ask the questions that you may have as it relates to financial aid or as it relates to scholarships. That is why those offices exist, to help you out. And then check organizations that you're affiliated with, whether it's your financial institution, your church, a nonprofit that you know of, or just really anywhere that you're associated with where they may have scholarships. So check with them. There are lots of financial institutions that offer scholarships to their membership that you may have to apply for. There may be different requirements, but definitely check that out. And when we're thinking about scholarship and grant opportunities, one, I want to talk about local scholarships. So those ones that would definitely be pertinent to you. We're thinking about the Pontiac Promise Zone Scholarship. So it's a $24,000 scholarship up to 4 years for university, trade, or community college. So either of those three paths that we also highlighted earlier, an application must be filled out. So you could find that application online. And then we have the Jobs Pipeline Scholarship. So for the Jobs Pipeline Scholarship, this is a $5,000 scholarship. And this is given to Pontiac residents pursuing a technical or skilled trades degree that fill out the application. And also there is an essay requirement. So when we're looking at just these two, that's quite a bit of money that you may be qualified for if you live within Pontiac. So definitely look into that. And then over to the right, we have lots of internet resources that you can, go and look up and figure out, what scholarships they may have online that you can have the ability to apply for. And then we're going to talk about what is the FAFSA. So the free application for federal student aid is an application that you would figure out. This is the single most important application that would allow individuals, schools and organizations to see what that need base may be for that student. So this is for government and also need-based student aid. Applications open on October the 1st of every year. This is something that you're going to have to fill out every year that you're going to go to school, because your family situation may change year to year. Even if it doesn't, you still have to fill that out. So the earlier that you're filling out that FAFSA, the better, because that's when the majority of the funding is available. Those that may fill it out later, they may not get all of the funding that they could have gotten because it becomes lower and they have to adjust the amount of money that is going to be given out. And this helps to determine what's called the expected family contribution. This is an acronym that you'll hear when it comes to financial aid. So EFC. This looks at all the financials that you may submit, and then they come up with what is the EFC. Based off that EFC and whatever school it goes to, when you get your financial aid package, there'll be a few things in that financial aid package. There'll be grants, or the possibility of grants. We talked about the grants are the ones that you don't have to pay back. And then there can be federal loans and also work study. So when we think of what work study is, let's say, I get my package back and I'm getting $3,000 for federal work study. What federal work study says is that if you're going to go ahead and work on campus, whatever office. Let's say I worked for the admissions office. I actually did work for the admissions office when I was at OU. Let's say I worked for the admissions office. What that is saying is that up to $3,000, as I earn those wages, the government will pay them to the school, and the school will pay them to me. So that makes it easier for you to be hired on campus, because that means that the total budget for you as an employee doesn't come out of whatever that department may be. So this is not, they're not going to cut you an automatic check for $3,000 just because that's what it says in your package. These are going to be wages that you have to earn. All righty, and then, I mentioned federal loans. So what are those? Let's talk about that. So there are kind of two types of, a few different types of federal loans. So ones that are subsidized or unsubsidized. Basically, the biggest difference between the two of them is that with subsidized, the government pays your interest while you're in school, but unsubsidized, interest accrues or interest is gained on that loan while you're in school. And we'll go over an example of this. They both offer what's called a 6-month grace period after graduation, and then also income-based repayment options where they would base your payment of repayment on whatever that current income is. So let's look at an example. So let's say both of them, we borrow $5,000 a year with 4 years to graduate. With the subsidized, our interest is going to be paid by the government while we're in school, but with the unsubsidized, we gain a little over $1,000 in interest. Balance after graduation, those 4 years that I went, I borrowed $20,000. Balance after graduation for the person with the unsubsidized loans is $21,115.93. The new loan balance after the grace period is $20,000. So that 6-month grace period that I just mentioned. And then the new loan balance after the grace period for the unsubsidized is $21,407. So once you get outside of your grace period, what happens is any interest that was gained while you were in school, they then take and put on top of what it is that you borrow. So that is why that difference exists between the subsidized and the unsubsidized loan.
And then, of course, going forward, since a student is now graduated, both loans, both the subsidized and unsubsidized, will continue to accumulate interest just like any other type of loan. It's just that you get that break period, as Devontae was pointing out, that really is, that's a great help when you graduate.
Absolutely. So, and you can have a mix of loans. I had a mix of subsidized and unsubsidized loans. But if you only have to take a little bit out for loans, then definitely look at that subsidized over the unsubsidized because of that interest that can be gained. And then there's the Parent Plus and the Direct Plus loans. What this essentially is Parent Plus and Direct Plus, they're the same loan, but one would be in the parent or guardian's name, the other one would be in the student's name. That's really what the biggest difference is between those. Then let's look at an example of a repayment plan. So we have a 10-year standard repayment and a 25-year extended repayment. So the monthly payment for $30,000 at a 4.53% rate is, for the 10 years, is $311.42. While for the 25-year extended repayment is $167.33. So one person is going to pay the $311.42 for 10 years, and the other one $167.33 for 25 years. After they have finished paying those loans off, the 10-year repayment would have paid about $7,400 in interest, while the person over here with the 25-year extended repayment, though they had the smaller payment, they're going to pay much more with that interest because they took a longer time to pay it off. And as you can see, that's about almost $13,000 difference in interest. So just because the payment is smaller doesn't mean that it's the best. We don't always have to think about what currently works, but what's going to also work for us the best in the future.
So this is a great example, just kind of reminding the students that we saw in the previous webinar on borrowing, the dramatic difference of the payment period. As Devontae is pointing out, we see this example of the student loans. The quicker a student can pay it off, obviously we're seeing way less interest there in that tenure with just a little over $7,000. If we stretch it all the way out to 25 years, it's taken longer to pay it off, and you're seeing that really huge difference that Devontae was pointing out. So just wanted to make that connection with the earlier webinar.
Thank you, Suzanne. All righty, and then some people may think, well, can I just pay my way through school? You talked about these loans and I just don't really know about all of that. If that is the thought, the answer is yes, you can, but it's going to require some planning. So it's going to require you thinking about how will I be able to pay for these different these different payments and things like that for the cost. So maybe you think about, well, I want to do community college first, and I'm going to apply for that Pontiac Promise. That's going to help out with that community college, definitely. And then maybe while you're in community college, you could be working as well to save up to being able to afford university. So it's absolutely doable. If I had this thought earlier on, maybe I would have done something differently. I wouldn't be in as much debt, but I wouldn't necessarily change my college experience. But also writing out that plan. So we talked about writing things down. You write out that plan and you truly know, well, I need to put up this amount of money to be able to pay for these university classes once I get to that point. You know, really think about what that plan is. And then also a side hustle. This is the land of side hustles these days. Everybody has more than one stream of income a lot of the times. If you don't know necessarily what you want to go into, try looking at what's called Side Hustle Nation. It's a website that has hundreds and hundreds of side hustles on there. You know, you can also do the grocery delivery or doing the taxi or cab services like Uber and Lyft and things like that. Then also a social media influencer. You all are, you know, young people and you understand how to work social media and things like that. So think about being a social media influencer and getting money from promoting products and things like that. Investing, that's also another side hustle. I've met people that, you know, they really got off into investing and were able to quit their day job. And that's what they do permanently. So think about those things. Then how can I set myself up for success? One, build a budget. So you want to become financially savvy now and not wait until later. That's why we had these seminars, to really give you the tools to become financially savvy and to really figure that out early on than waiting until you get into your career and start making the money and then decide, oh, maybe I should get this together. So I will tell you that it's much easier to gain that financial knowledge and use it now earlier on than it is to kind of correct yourself after you've already started establishing spending habits and things like that. And then also save. So we talked about if I want to pay my way through school, I'm going to need to save. So make sure you're making those savings a priority. I recommend putting that money aside even before you spend anything out of your paycheck. That way you ensure that you're putting something up. Gathering that understanding and very clear understanding of finances now. When you're thinking about a credit card shouldn't be thought of free money, but really as credit building tools that help you. And then beware of the famous refund check. So if your refund check, when you get in school, if it's coming from a loan and you don't need it, you don't have to accept that. You can deny that and have that sent back. So that way you don't owe more money than what's necessary. Make connections. I will tell you, it has been one of the biggest things I've learned in school is the power of connection, the power of your network. That's another reason why, you know, when you're getting the opportunity to interact with people, whether it's people through your community, joining, if you want to be an entrepreneur, joining the Chamber of Commerce so that you can learn the local business owners, really get connected with people, find your network, find your own community. And then also lastly is believe in you. Believe that you have the power to unlock everything that is necessary for you to get that, to attain those career dreams, to attain those aspirations that you have. And, you know, believe that you have the power to do that and you have the knowledge. And if you don't have the knowledge, then you have the power to go out and find that knowledge that is necessary for you to do that. So thank you all so much for listening to me. I so appreciate it. If you'd like, the credit union does have some resources. You can take a look at our Financial 4.0 app and website, full of lots and lots of knowledge that'll help you along with articles and quizzes and things like that that are definitely geared towards your, your age group of high school to college age students that really want to learn more about financial education. And then Wallet Watch is our financial education podcast. It's like having financial education on the go. So definitely check us out on all of the different social media, all of the different podcast outlets. So wherever you may watch or listen to your podcast. All righty, and I'm going to turn it back over to Suzanne. She's going to talk to you all about apprenticeships and some other opportunities.